Heating, air conditioning. You should also check the heating and air conditioning. Replace saturated interior filters to help provide clean air to the cabin, as well as ensure that the heating and air conditioning systems are working properly. Working in conditions that are too hot or too cold can quickly lead to heat stroke, hypothermia, respiratory complications, or other illnesses. Fire extinguisher. There must be a fire extinguisher in your machine. You should always know where it is and how to use it. Inspect the fire extinguisher at least once a month. Once a year, it's also advised to subject to fire extinguishers to a maintenance check. Please note that they expire or may not stop working over time. If in doubt, change it. The importance of regular inspecting it and maintaining your backhoe properly cannot be overstated. Immediately report the damages or malfunctions to your supervisor. Follow lockout tagout procedures if it is unsafe to operate the machine. Never use a machine that needs repair. Employee 1 was driving a backhoe towards the flatbed trailer. While driving the backhoe up the ramp, a wheel came off the ramp, causing the machine to lurch at an angle. Shortly after, it began to tip over, and Employee 1 attempted to remain in the cab, but his seatbelt had frayed and broken under the force of his weight. As a result, he fell from the cab, crushed under the loader. Employee 1 suffered serious injuries, including broken bones, a cracked sternum, and severe head injuries. He died from his injuries on the way to the hospital. What went wrong? A prior inspection of the backhoe was not carried out. If the backhoe was inspected and was not in good condition, the operator should have refused to use the machine if it was not in good condition. If Employee 1 had been more thorough in his pre-shift inspection, he would have noticed that his seatbelt was frayed. He could have sent his machinery for maintenance and avoided this incident. Pre-shift inspections are essential to prevent serious and even life-threatening accidents or incidents. Stability. In this section, we will look at stability as it relates to load securing, load handling, and different surfaces across which loads will be carried. Understanding stability is not difficult once you understand some basic principles such as weight, center of gravity, and rollover capacity. We will discuss these and other terms throughout the training. The weight of the backhoe gives it power, but also makes it dangerous. The average car weighs approximately 4,000 pounds, 180 kilos. While a backhoe weighs 12,000 pounds and 16,000 pounds. For this reason, you must be careful when using backhoes to avoid an accident. The center of gravity, the stability pyramid, and ground conditions such as slope are all things to consider when planning your work. Ultimately, stability comes down to understanding the capacity of the machine and planning with this capacity in mind. In the following slides, we will define some essential terms related to capacity. Regarding the difference between these two capabilities, operators tend to ask themselves, can we exceed the rated operating capacity, ROC? The answer is no. Rated operating capacities, or ROC, is more than a guide. Operator manuals and machine labels clearly state that ROC should never be exceeded. In addition to tipping capacities and ROC, you will need to understand breakout forces, impact capacity, and storage capacity when operating a backhoe. We will briefly discuss these terms in the next few slides. Braking force. The ability of the backhoe to lift the excavator bucket while loaded is also called braking force or bucket force. This only applies to the excavator hoe side of the backhoe. Therefore, it is important that you do not confuse breakout force with ROC or take it as an indicator of what the machine bucket can lift into the air. Hit impact capacity. Impact capacity is the capacity of the bucket when filled with material that is level with the edges of the bucket. This is like filling a measuring cup with flour and then scraping the excess off the top to get an exact measurement. The ability to lift the load is the hitting capacity. Cumulative capacity. Cumulative capacity, on the other hand, is basically the impact capacity plus the small pile on top. As a general rule, the cumulative capacity is approximately 1/3 greater than the achieved capacity. This additional pile has a 2-to-1 angle of a repose at the top, rising to a point in the center. Consult your manual for details. The angle of repose is the maximum angle at which pile of granular material will remain stable without any of the material sliding downward. When the machine is loaded on level ground, the front wheels become its support point. This is because the combined weight of the loader added to the part of the backhoe in front of the fulcrum offsets the weight of everything behind the fulcrum. Reminder, since backhoes have swivel seats, either side can become the front of the machine at any time. This means that the fulcrum changes with you, depending on the tool you're using. However, if one side of the backhoe gains additional weight, encounters different terrain, or is affected by other external forces, it can quickly take over the other side. This could cause the machine to tip over. However, if any of the accessories are lifted, with or without load, the change in the balance point affects the stability of the backhoe. For example, as the arm is raised and extended, the inflection point of the machine moves towards the front of the machine. Gravity center. The center of gravity, COG, of the backhoe is not the same as its point of support. The center of gravity is the point around which the weight of the machine is distributed evenly in all directions. This point is especially important when stabilizing the backhoe. The center of gravity of the load, or the center of the load, is equally important. The COG of the backhoe is based on how the load is positioned when it is lifted. This means that as the load becomes heavier, the combined COG will approach the fulcrum or inflection point. This change in center of gravity also affects the lateral or side-to-side stability of the machine. Lateral stability also decreases when the arm of the backhoe is extended or rotated to either side. Stability pyramid. The stability pyramid is formed by imaginary lines between the front and the rear wheels, the two main potential support points, and the highest point of the backhoe. As long as the combined COG is within the triangle and the operator is safe, the machine will remain stable under ideal conditions. As you can see, many things can cause the COG to pass the fulcrum and cause a rollover. It is important to note that every time a load is lifted into the air, the machine's COG moves up and away from the fulcrum, and the machine becomes more unstable. Stabilizers. Each stabilizer is attached to the sides of the backhoe using a hinge and hydraulic cylinder. You should check the hinge pin, bushings, hoses, and cylinders. Inspect the rubber and the metal pads before operating the backhoe and ensure proper ground support. In an emergency, you can use the stabilizers to prop up the backhoe. However, avoid using the stabilizers in this way. Perform thorough inspections, plan ahead, and find alternative routes whenever possible. Slopes. Traveling on slopes can affect the stability of your machine. It doesn't matter if you're going uphill or downhill. Slopes are dangerous. That's why it's important to test your brakes during pre-shift inspections. If you're working on a slope, it is best to work at a 90-degree angle to the slope. Take notes. You should always go slow when traveling in the slope. We'll go over more do's and don'ts for slopes and terrain on a later section. Load and capacity tables. A load chart demonstrates what a backhoe can and cannot lift. However, the real value of these tables is that they specify the loads your backhoe can handle, given a certain specification, such as elevation, lift angle, and weight. Take notes. The sample loading chart below is similar to those found in your operator's manual. Both sections provide details of specific types of lifts. Notice how the capacity changes based on the movement of the backhoe. Sometimes you may have to travel with a suspended load. If it happens, keep it as close to the ground as possible to maintain control while moving. Due to the additional complications associated with the suspended loads, take more time to plan ahead. Dynamic conditions. Dynamic conditions are things like speed, temperature, precipitation, and terrain conditions like slopes. All of these dynamic conditions introduce additional forces that can make the backhoe less stable and increase the chances of it tipping over. Ground conditions are a key factor when planning stability. Before operating on a job site, inspect the potholes, areas of soft ground, and other obstructions that could cause a tip over. Please note that the weather can change the soil. Ice, mud, even bumpy terrain can be enough to upset the balance of the backhoe and cause it to roll over. Take notes. Operating your backhoe on previously excavated soil can affect its stability. As the rear wheels try to gain traction, they can dig into the ground and cause the machine to tip backwards. Take the time to assess the terrain and plan accordingly. Climate. Rain and snow can cause hazardous working conditions. Excessive rainfall can soften the ground, and lower temperatures could create layers of ice that must be broken up before operating. Precipitation can also change the stability of stockpiles. Keep this in mind when working in adverse conditions. Very hot conditions can be just as dangerous. In extreme heat conditions, sealants can lose strength or dry improperly. Your backhoe and other machines are also at risk of overheating, requiring more time to cool down before becoming operational again. Check your manual to see if your equipment requires high temperature grease. Wind. Wind hazards often receive less attention than rain and snow, but they are no less dangerous. High winds can quickly alter conditions in a workplace, can cause several problems for employees. Hazards include, but are not limited to, slips and trips due to poor visibility, tip overs, and falling loads. Best practices indicate that high wind scenarios, backhoes should be parked with their opening away from the direction of the wind. Be especially aware of supplies or materials that may fall if you are in high locations or near a slope. Employee number 2 did not consider how the COG, the center of gravity, would change when he loaded and threw a load on a slope. He could have positioned his backhoe differently to maintain safe operation. Remember that lateral stability decreases when the boom is turned to one side, and that this change is more dramatic on a slope. Safety starts with you. Statistics show that there are inherent dangers associated with heavy machinery operation, even under normal working conditions. In this module, we will discuss some of the most common hazards that are under your direct control. Physical and mental health. Many accidents have been reported after employees under emotional stress made a mistake at work that caused a serious harm or injury to others. Tradesmen under emotional stress may not be able to stay focused. If you feel extremely angry or upset, notify a supervisor and wait to operate your backhoe until you feel better. Medicine. If you suffer from health problems that affect your ability to operate machinery, you should not use a backhoe. Even over-the-counter cold medicine can compromise your alertness. If you are taking any type of medication, including prescription medication, you should obtain medical advice about whether you can operate machinery. You may need to wait until your illness passes before returning to work. Additionally, never operate any type of machinery while under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Fatigue. Although fatigue does not always lead to injury, it does reduce efficiency. Fatigue can occur after working too many hours, doing tedious work, not getting enough sleep, or not eating nutritious food. If you are excessively tired, do not operate backhoes. Instead, get some rest, eat, or exercise to refresh your alertness. Remember, when it comes to your physical health and emotion, it is better to be safe than sorry. Take care of yourself like you would your backhoe. Neglecting yourself can be just as dangerous as neglecting your machine. Another serious problem in many workplaces is distraction. You must constantly be aware of your surroundings while operating a backhoe. Radios, phones, other devices are useful in the workplace, but they can cause workplace accidents if you are distracted by them. Antics. Backhoes are not toys. As such, stunts, racing, reckless backhoe operation, and other types of antics are never acceptable. Even if it's not on work hours, horseplay is dangerous and it can lead to serious injury or even death. Additionally, the backhoe should never be used to lift people. It is not designed for this purpose. Finally, never allow children to operate the machine. By law, operators must be 18 years or older. Personal protective equipment, PPE. Personal protective equipment is designed to keep you safe. As such, always use it while operating your machinery. The most common piece of PPE to use are reflective vests, gloves, steel-toe boots, and hard hats. Your company may recommend additional PPE, such as eye or ear protection. Reflective vests. Always wear reflective vests and other fluorescent clothing while working in or around a backhoe. This makes it more visible to other operators, especially in dark conditions. Gloves. Wear gloves to protect your hands from cuts that may occur while performing pre-shift inspections or clearing debris. You are not required to wear gloves while driving, but it's recommended to wear them during all other operations. Avoid wearing gloves that may impede proper operation or cause other hazards. Footwear. Wearing non-slip footwear can significantly reduce the chances of falls when getting in or out of the vehicle and when working in slippery conditions. Avoid shoes with narrow heels, spikes, or other features that can get caught in debris or make it difficult to walk on pavement. Steel-toe boots are usually required on site. Hard hats. Hard hats protect your head from falling objects. Although your backhoe includes fobs, it cannot protect you from falling objects when you are outside your vehicle. Wear a proper fitted hard hat when in the workplace. Additional PPE. As mentioned above, the company you work for may recommend additional PPE. If you deem it necessary, common suggestions include hearing and eye protection, but may also include coveralls or respirators. Know your machine. A safe operator is one who understands and respects safe operating principles. By avoiding bad habits and doing everything possible to learn how to use the backhoe correctly, safe operators become better able to prevent and respond to accidents. You must meet certain requirements if you want to be considered a safe operator and comply with regulations. These include receiving training and retraining refreshers to obtain the proper licenses or certifications, and also reading the operator's manual. Employers must provide training specific to the machine you will use and the requirements of the job. As mentioned above, you should include classroom training as well as written exam and practical assessment to determine your understanding of basic operating principles. You must also undergo a periodic review every 3 years. Operator's manual. I know, you're tired of hearing. It needs to be repeated, read, and become familiar with your backhoe operator manual before using the machine. Reading the manual is an important part of becoming a safe operator. It has the information you need on safe operations, maintenance, pre-shift inspections, warning labels, and more. Pre-shift inspections. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is to properly perform a thorough inspection before you use a backhoe. If someone else inspected the backhoe, you will still need to make sure they did it correctly and that there is enough fuel in the backhoe to start your shift. As part of your inspection, verify that all required warning labels and capacity plates, both inside and out, are on the machine and accessories in legible condition. Follow their warnings and replace labels if they are damaged or cannot be read clearly. Getting in and out of the cabin. In addition to pre-operation checks and training, safe operations begin with safe entry into the machine. It may seem silly, but injuries from improper entering in the machine can occur. You can significantly reduce the risk of injury with a few simple practices. When getting in or out of your vehicle, remember the principle of 3 points of contact. Get in and get out of the cab with 2 hands, 1 foot to maximize your stability. Also, wipe excess mud off your boots to prevent slipping. Ergonomics. Backhoe operators often overlook the importance of ergonomics. From the tight space of the cab to the erratic movement of the machine, it can be physically strenuous work. Working in these conditions for long hours can put strain on your neck and back if you're not careful. Seatbelts. We cannot emphasize enough the importance of wearing a seatbelt. In the event of a crash or a rollover, a seatbelt is your best chance of survival. Romps and fomps. Rollover protective structures plays a vital role in keeping you safe. If your backhoe ever starts to tilt, the last thing you want to do is unbuckle your seatbelt and get out of the cab. Instead, brace yourself and let the seatbelt and rollover protective structures do their job. They are proven technologies that will save your life. Your backhoe's falling object protective structure, FOBS, may include a sheet of plexiglass or clear acrylic. Make sure you can remove the transparent sheet for cleaning when necessary. Replace the plexiglass if it is cracked or broken. A dirty or damaged overhead guard can obstruct your line of sight and make lifting less safe. Like falling object protective structures, roll-over protective structures are built into the cab of each backhoe loader. Do not modify any of these in any way. Doing so will weaken it, and it can lead to critical failure in an accident. Take notes. Never tie cardboard on top of either of these two safety systems to protect you from the rain or other elements, as it can obstruct your view when lifting loads. Hey, you've already done the hardest part, which was watch this video. Now, don't stay there. Take the next step. Answer a couple questions, pass the quiz, and the certification is yours. Don't just stop by watching. Take action today. Go down to the link below, get a discount, and get certified now.